Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of our Two Cents podcast. Today, alongside your regular hosts Ale Rashid and Fareed, Amaima and I will be joining you to discuss Olivia Rodrigo's recent album Sour.
This was Olivia's debut album, and you all following the very hit release of Driver's License, which for most people put her on the map, including for me and Fareed. Of course, Manal and Amaima would want to hear now flex what they were saying before we started recording.
Yeah, Amaima and I have known and been fans of Olivia ever since she came in High School Musical and Bizarre Work. हमने like way before her songs were released, we used to fangirl about her. So we're just
And
polar.
I remember being a huge fan of All I Want by Olivia Rodrigo. It was I think episode 7 or 8 of High School Musical, the musical, the series, and also like even though Olivia is a really good singer, you guys should also discover the fact that she's a very good actor as well. So like her acting is also on point, and there's this beautiful chemistry between her and Joshua Bassett. And you guys should definitely watch High School Musical, the series on Disney Plus.
That chemistry really brought a great reaction from her fans. But anyway, uh, let's get into the album, how it fared, how it came about, how we liked it. We're going to start off with just our overall comments on the album. So, Fareed, what is your overall thoughts?
So my overall thought is like the first line of the album in Brutal, which is kind of like inaudible a bit. I want it to be messy. And then, starts the production. And I think the album is like a bit messy in a way. It's sort of like when I looked at the track list, it sort of like felt like she was like going through all the stages of grief. But even though it turned out to be quite different and she had her own take on those 5 stages of grief, but there were a lot of tracks that I felt like were like wild cards, like even Good For You or Hope You're Okay for me just didn't like go with, the aesthetic she had sort of built with Driver's License and Deja Vu. Her songwriting is pretty strong. It's obviously comparable to Taylor Swift's songwriting, but the production just really felt a bit off. And I'm not a fan of Olivia's vocals, unfortunately. Even like with other musicians, like even Lord, Adele, Taylor, Dua Lipa, they have this sort of their vocals seem very natural, and yet when I listen to Olivia, her vocals actually seem really forced. Like she's like forcing to make those notes, and she's struggling with it. Now, I don't know if it's because of the song mixing. I don't know if it's because of something else, but the production was just a bit off for me. But the songwriting was incredible, and there were some songs that were like masterpieces for me. But again, it's not a perfect album.
For me, I think I would agree with some of what Faith said, but also majorly disagree on some things. One thing is that her vocal ability, I do feel, is actually pretty good. She explores a lot of different things in the album, and it's nice. What I think the album lacked a little was, uh, it got kind of repetitive. I think Sour is very comparable to Taylor's Fearless in the sense that it's very heavily about one breakup. But the problem is, Sour is a little too much about that same breakup in every song. But I will say, however, for me, the thing that saves this is Brutal. Brutal is the perfect opening track for one of the best openers I've seen from an album just because of the way it's so chaotic, and then the last part, which is all calm, and she just says, the song ends with the line, I don't know where to start. And after that you think, okay, then the album's perfectly structured, because it does feel like she didn't know where to start. These are just all random emotions she felt start to finish that she's put up. And that's why I guess Brutal and Hope You're Okay, which are two very different emotions, they make sense as the bookends of the album. So I think overall it was pretty well structured, pretty well put together for a debut album. Debut albums aren't always, that good, and especially to try to follow up three pretty good hits. I didn't like Deja Vu, but it was still commercially a hit. So to follow that up with a good album isn't always easy. People sometimes fall off, but I do feel like she was able to maintain her momentum with bringing together an album. Minal and Amima, your thoughts.
Okay, so I think for me, a very important part of any album or any song is the lyrics. Because like every Taylor Swift song or every Shawn Mendes, whoever songs I'm listening to, I always, like scroll up to the lyrics and notice those. So I think in most of her songs, the lyrics are really childish. I don't know. I mean, she is a
Yeah,
child, obviously. She's like 16 or 17, but her vocals, I think they didn't resonate that well together because her vocals were really mature in the sense that it really didn't look like a 16-year-old is singing them, but the lyrics didn't really go with that. But overall, I think I
that's
really
very
did like
true.
the album. And agreeing with what Fareed said, I think it was a little haphazard because driver's license and deja vu, they're songs that have a really chill and low melody, and they're not really that um upbeat like good for you and brutal. So I think I didn't like that aspect of it. It was a little over the place, but other than that I really did like the album, and I think that for a debut album it was pretty good.
Amima?
So generally I really liked the album, especially considering the fact that it explores themes of insecurity, envy, and heartbreaks. I feel like when I was listening to the songs, there was always one aspect in the song at least that I could relate to personally. For example, the insecurities part about how we let other people decide what we look like, what we feel about ourselves, how we depend on other people essentially. And also I feel like I agree with Fareed when he said, it was a very haphazard album. But then again, I feel like this haphazardness is what essentially represents your teenage years, about how everything is so unpredictable and you don't really understand what's going on, what's happening. And I feel like that is then again, something that we as teenagers can relate to. And so yes, also I feel like in the process of being enough for someone, in the inner song Enough for You, she describes how she was doing things that she thought the other person liked, and in doing that process she was losing herself. So essentially it's a very beautiful concept that you lose yourself in the process of being enough for someone. So when you're trying to gain someone, you lose yourself. So I feel like that's a very beautiful concept that has been described in her songs and in her album generally as well.
Let's get into our top three songs.
Okay, my third favorite, I have two third favorites. I don't know if that makes sense, but like Happier and Driver's License are on the same level. I think when you read the name of the song, you just think it's gonna be a very, feel good and nice song, and that's what I thought because after, all of the brutal and traitor wale gaane, I thought Happier would have a nice chill vibe to it. But when I looked into the lyrics, I realized that it's the exact opposite of happiness. And I think Happier had one of the best lyrics in the whole album. And the same case with driver's licenses. I fell in love with the driver's license. I don't know what it's called. I think the beat drop or whatever, the part where the red lights thing
Right.
comes. It was just so unpredictable. And I love that about so many songs when you're not expecting something to go completely opposite and it happened. It was just amazing. And I think driver's license really shows the fact that she's in her teenage dreams, and how I love how she's related everything, like every feeling or every emotion, to something of her age, and how everyone else that age can relate to it. So I think that's the reason these two were on my third.
Amima, what's your third favorite song?
So my third favorite song is One Step Forward and Three Steps Back, primarily because of the lyrics, I'm the love of your life until I make you mad. So I feel like, this is a very realistic approach to what life in itself is, how temporary things are, how you are essentially used by people, and they will only be happy with you until they're getting what they want from you. And once they're not getting what they want from you, they're just going to turn their backs on you and just act like you were never there. So I feel like this theme in itself that was introduced was something that I did not expect to be in this album generally.
Yeah,
ठीक है.
that's true. I do. I actually think One Step Forward, Three Steps Back was one of the most mature songs on the album. It's very self aware. The only reason it's not in my top three is because of the fact that it interpolates New Year's Day, and then the second the piano starts, I can't hear a song other than New Year's Day. So that jarring part for me is just why it's not in my top three. Anyone getting into my third pick? My third favorite song, also, there's two for me as well. One is as Manal said, Happier, and then the second one is Hope You're Okay. Hope You're Okay is one of my favorite songs to listen to from the album. It's not higher because I know it's not perhaps the best song on the album by any stretch, but for me, just because it's a completely different subject matter. When you talk about your teenage years, especially the time when you're turning 18, you've lost a lot of your old friends. Some of them you've lost along the way. You've switched schools. Things change. For me, that is why I got a messenger call, and for me, that is why I Hope You're Okay is one of the most unique and refreshing songs to listen to on the album. Great.
So my third favorite song is again an unpopular opinion. It's actually Deja Vu. So yeah, so the bridge of Deja Vu is very immature and childish, but for me, I just like how the song played out, and in general, the structure of the song, it started off as very slow and sort of sweet, and where she's, reliving her memories with that person she used to date. But slowly and slowly, she's actually taking those memories as a negative connotation, and she's becoming this menacing sort of woman. So yeah, that's the thing I really love, that within a course of 3.5 minutes, there was this whole transformation in the song.
Okay, so my second favorite song is One Step Forward, Three Steps Back, primarily because uske na ek lyrics hai, I hate that I give you power over that kind of stuff when she says, "Am I pretty boy?" And I think that it's just very, very, very relatable in the sense that in this age, or the stage that all of teenagers go through, it's just that we rely so much on validation from others that we forget, like we get lost, okay? Because I think this song made me more self-aware about the fact that I also rely on, external validation. And I think it's a very important thing that she highlighted. And also, I love the part, just like the melody of the song. It's really nice, and it really goes with the lyrics. But I think it had a really evident double meaning, which for some reason I understood not as well as Amaima explained the whole thing. But I think on the surface, that's why I like this song a lot.
Yeah,
Amaima.
obviously it took the melody from a pretty good song, but yeah. Amaima, what's your second favorite?
So my second favorite song is Traitor, primarily because there are a couple of lyrics that I really like. Firstly, the part when she says, "Guess you didn't cheat, but you're still a traitor," and then the part when she says that, "I know that you never feel sorry." So I feel like this really shows how at times that she knows that the other party will never realize their mistakes, but she's still ranting about it. She's saying everything despite knowing that her efforts will be futile. So I feel like that's also a very unique concept that I personally have never seen in any song before.
For me, my second favorite song was Favorite Crime. It's one of the shorter songs on the album, but again, its lyrics are really good, especially the lyric "One heart broke, four hands bloody." I think it summarized that whole song very well, and just the way in the end, the chorus gets way louder. It's like a choir singing the song, even though it's a very short chorus. It's only two lines in the chorus, but it's really good. And for me, that's the song I've listened to the most on repeat on the album. And I actually think it's also a good indication that she doesn't need heavy production for all of her songs, because her songs have a lot of heavy production, especially the ones which weren't singles. Other than Good For You, they have a lot of heavy production. So I hope that this also shows that she can carry her voice on an acoustic track or something well for future projects.
So for me, my second favorite one was Happier. So what I just liked about this is she's sort of lying to herself to in order to move forward with her breakup. She's making herself believe that she hopes that the guy is not happier with the other woman than he was with her. And I think this whole concept is like, it's we teenagers sort of like use this concept with different things in our lives. So that was something that was very relatable. You want yourself to believe something in order to just move on. So for me,
Yeah.
That's primarily why it was my second favorite.
Anyway, let's get to our top songs and Manal.
Okay, so I promise I'm not copying Jemima and Ale, but my favorite song was Traitor and also Favorite Crime. Favorite Crime मैंने पहली बार आज सुने है, but I just think there's this lyrics उसके अंदर है, all the things I did just so I could call you mine. I just think that it was probably the one lyrics जो मुझे actually समझ आया था, because most of the lyrics I couldn't understand what she was saying,
Yeah,
and
this one has
when I actually read them on Spotify or Google, I was like, oh, that's what she was saying. But this is one lyric that I actually understood, and I think um इसके lyrics were probably one of the best lyrics I've heard overall in all of the songs that I've heard. But yeah, it was really good. And exactly how Amaima said, Traitor just had a very, very, very realistic aspect to it, which not only highlighted what she was going through, but also helped, listeners to relate with it. Because sometimes I think you've probably been through something without knowing how badly it affected you. Traitor made me realize a lot of stuff. So I think self awareness ke bare mein, both of these songs are really good. So these were both my number one.
Jemima.
My favorite song is Good For You. Primarily because of the lyrics, your apathy is like a wound in salt. And then, when she's saying maybe I'm too emotional, I feel like, that's the part where she's questioning herself whether she's overreacting or whether she's exaggerating, or maybe, it's just the fact that she's getting too emotional. I feel like that's something that I can personally relate to, at times when I ask myself, maybe I'm just overreacting and overthinking essentially. So, and secondly, I feel like, the lyrics, the part where she says, you're so unaffected, I really don't get it. I feel like, this is primarily the sort of, she's trying to portray the other party as like a cold, ruthless person who doesn't really realize what he's putting the other person through. And then again, I feel like that's primarily what you should be prepared for as well in general in life. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, Good For You has a lot of those one-line moments. There's one which I won't
Um,
say on the podcast, but yeah, it's pretty satisfying too.
okay, we
Anyway,
understand.
moving forward to my top pick, for me, it was okay. So I think the best song on the album is Driver's License, but I won't say it here because it's Driver's License, everyone knows anyway. So for me, it was the other song that came close was Enough for You. I think it has that same thing that with Traitor, in which it in that bridge moment, just the line, don't tell me that you're sorry, boy, feel sorry for yourself. After such a sad song, flipping it around, it's very reminiscent of how Taylor writes her songs as well, and it has this, it reminds me of White Horse's last chorus, but it has this really, it has this good, it's good emotion again. Her more stripped down songs for me were better on the album than stuff like Jealousy and other ones which were really like loud. But yeah, for me it was enough for you. Read.
So yeah, I have two favorite songs. One is very obvious, Driver's License, that piano-driven ballad, and I don't think I can ever listen to another song with that level of magnitude, those emotions that she put in, especially as a sort of debut song for an artist. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can have a better debut song. But other than that, my other favorite song is Brutal. It really like sort of felt like a track from Plastic Hearts by Miley Cyrus, that sort of heavy instrumental sort of thing. And the lyrics sort of resonated her emotions really well. Like, I might quit my job, start a new life. It sort of just shows how frustrated she is, and the
Yeah.
whole how she's sort of again becoming someone she doesn't want to throughout the course of the album. So it really started with a banger, the whole album, and that's why.
Right. So now that we've covered our top three, let's talk about one thing which people have been saying since the start of how Olivia's basic, rise after Driver's License. Olivia said it in a lot of interviews how she compares her songwriting and her inspirations mainly from Taylor Swift and Lord. Lord is very clear to see in the way her bridges are structured. The bridge of Driver's License is very comparable to the sound that you have in Green Light and other songs like that. It's loud, it has the production, even the images of driving and all of that. So those were really present there. When we come to Taylor, now, Manal, you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I think when I heard Sour, it really reminded me of Reputation, because I think the aggression and the aspect of, anger and revenge, it's really close to what happens in Reputation, because like songs like I Did Something Bad, Don't Blame Me, they're really similar to the sort of vibe Olivia was going through, because it's all revenge. Obviously, reasons are different, and the way both of them are writing about I mean, every Taylor song is about a breakup, but I think Reputation ke andar, the way that she channeled all of her feelings, because they were definitely really overwhelming, all of her feelings into songs, and songs that actually portrayed what she was writing, even like stuff like Look What You Made Me Do. I think all of their lyrics were quite similar to what Olivia wrote, which is why I think also like Olivia is such a huge Taylor fan. I think she probably got inspired by that and aspires to, write like her. And I think she did a pretty good job at it, because if I just read the lyrics of two songs, one from Taylor, one from Olivia, I would probably not be able to tell the difference. But obviously, coming back to the point I mentioned before, the maturity aspect, Taylor is obviously more of a mature writer, and her metaphors and her similes are literally the best. But I think
For me,
overall, she really
Olivia's
did.
songwriting really reminded me. I feel like if there's one song I could compare this whole album to, it's probably Forever and Always from Fearless. Just that, the snarky comment where you said forever and always, you didn't mean it. That's literally
Yeah, and
Star.
also Mr. Perfectly Fine. Mr.
Yeah,
Perfectly
that
Fine,
too.
because it's Mr.
Yeah.
Perfectly Fine is puri ki puri sarcastic, and the same sense comes here when she's being sarcastic in all of her songs. So I think
Yeah,
it
that's
was
true. I
really
actually think Mr. Perfect Fine and Good for
inspired
You
by Taylor.
literally like side by side go together there.
Okay, now since you
Uh,
brought up this comparison, I still think Olivia's song, any song, is more complex than Mr. Perfectly Fine. Because she doesn't make, because with Taylor, some of her songs are just like very straightforward. Some of her songs are like really straightforward, like, I went through this breakup, and and if she sort of takes a sarcastic tone, she's like stays consistent with it. With Olivia, like half of the song can be sarcastic, half of the song can be actual emotions, and you never really got a song that just displayed one emotion by Olivia. So every one of Olivia's songs was like really complex in its own way. But again, it's again the whole discography. Taylor has so many songs, and this is just Olivia's one debut album. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also
yeah. So
think,
for me, I think when we like to go towards our conclusion here now, what I would want, and I for Olivia in the future is, like Amima brought up a lot of times how she's 18, it's relatable, it's all of that, but she's not going to stay 18 forever. So I think the major problem that she's going to have coming out of this now is how she's going to turn sour, not turn sour, but turn her songwriting into something which is mature and goes beyond just the current age area she's targeting, right? She's not going to be a Disney star forever, hopefully. So she needs to take
though
that
in
into.
our hearts, she's
Yes, Olivia will always be alive.
Those were our major hopes for Sour. How it's going to end off, how our review for the album was. The last thing that we just wanted to shoehorn in here is going into the Grammys next year. How is the album going to fare? I do feel like Olivia, she's got best new artist down for sure. There is no artist who's had her level of impact this year at all. In terms of the other things, I do feel like Driver's License will get a few nominations. Maybe Good for You will get something in the pop categories, and I don't think SAR itself will reach the general field, but I do think that Olivia has a very fair chance of making it next year. Was-
I think last year when I saw the Grammys, like I honestly thought nobody could have a debut year like Megan Thee Stallion. But now I'm just like waiting for another artist to top Olivia. And I don't think
Yeah,
that will ever happen now. I mean, all her three debut singles are on top of the Billboard. She's like breaking every record she can. So she definitely has Best New Artist. but I doubt that there's already a lot of competition, even though with very less deserving albums like Positions, etc. They shouldn't be nominated, but again, it's the Grammys. You don't know what to expect.
It was a good debut album. We all enjoyed it. We do hope that her music becomes more mature as we move forward. With that,
So this was our 2 cents on Olivia Rodrigo's Sour.